Good evening. Good evening to each and every one of you. Thank you for tuning in today. I'm your host, Dr. Marshall, and every Friday night, we meet here to talk about money sense. We have a special guest tonight will be our guest for weeks to come, who is endeavoring to teach us how to make sense out of our money. So, Money Sense wants to bring you tonight to learn about paying off debt. If you've ever wanted to know how to do that, and how to do that successfully, tonight's show is the show. We want to text your friends, inbox your friends, Facebook them. You can catch us on Ruko TV, Amazon Prime TV. You can catch us on YouTube, Facebook, wherever you may be watching from, amen, or the website, mplministries.org. We want to empower you to be a better steward of what God has given you so that you can live the life that God intended you. So tonight, let us get right into our show as we welcome my very special guest, Mr. Brian Gilbert, who is a chief financial analyst at a large firm here. Good evening, Brian.
Good evening, Dr. Lee. How are you?
I am fine. How are you?
I'm outstanding. Long week. I'm glad it's over. The weekend's coming. Got an extended vacation of a bit, but I'm excited to teach people about paying off debt.
Well, that sounds good to me because we all need to know how to make sense out of this little change that we get so often because we are living in a time where we must learn to be good stewards. And if you've been a good steward, a better steward over what God has given us. So, Brian, I'm kind of going to turn it over to you and say, give us what you got tonight, all right?
Sure. If you want to bring up the slide that says paying off debt, basically, all the financial threats that you have to your family, nothing is more dangerous than debt. Every family has a quest to feel good financially. And unfortunately, debt is the most common enemy that we face. So the very fact that it is so common is what makes it the most dangerous threat to you and your family's financial well-being. So if you want to go to the second slide, we'll start to get started here. So for those of you who are review portions of the first show, we talked a little bit about compound interest. And there's a good news about compound interest, which is that it can work for you, but there's a bad news about compound interest, and that is that it can work against you. So using this particular example, did you know if you made a one-time $3,000 credit card purchase with an 18% interest rate, which is the average credit card rate you'll find on a card, about 18.99%, with no new purchases and made only the minimum payments, it would take you 10 years to pay off that debt. And in the course of that 10 years, you would pay them $5,002 to pay off something that you purchased on credit for $3,000. So the idea would be, if you don't have enough cash to purchase that $3,000 purchase, you should probably wait. You definitely do not want to put that on credit. If so, this means where you can borrow someone at no interest at all, that's better to do, or to save up the money instead to make that purchase than putting it on credit, because those interest charges are what eats you up a bit. If you want to go to the third slide, and that's because of the nature of what we call revolving debt versus fixed debt. Revolving debt are the type of debts that you're going to see on credit cards. And essentially what happens is they take the balance that you have normally between the 18th and 21st of each month. They tack on the percentage rate for your card for that period, and then they give you the option to pay a minimum payment or to pay a full payment. A minimum payment is just the payment to cover the interest on the card. It doesn't cover any premium whatsoever. So over time, your credit card balance is going to grow, and you'll never pay off that balance unless you pay it in full. If you pay it in full, you're actually paying all of the principal, which means that you're paying back all of the purchases that you made, plus you're paying the interest that they're charging to your credit card per month. That's really the way that you want to pay down credit cards, so that you always have your available credit balance, which also has an effect on your credit score. Fixed debt is a little bit different. With fixed debt, you're always going to pay the certain amount of money every single month. It's $595 on $17,000 of debt at 18%. It's never going to go up. It's never going to go down. But as you see, on a revolving debt, if you paid the same amount, it's going to take you 17 years and 2 months to pay off. On fixed debt, it's going to take you 3 years and 2 months to pay off on the same amount of money. So if you want to go to the next slide, we're going to talk about a concept called debt stacking. What makes the world of difference is not how much debt you're in, how you pay your debt off. And it doesn't matter how much debt you have. If you use the concept I'm about to show you, you will pay off all your debt much faster, even if you don't have any more money coming in. So it's based off the principle that you have multiple debts. You can line them up. Just get out a sheet of paper or get a copy of your credit report. Line up every single one of your debts and how much you owe on those. And what you're going to do is you're going to pay the minimum payment on all the other debts, but you're going to pay the full payment on one of your debts. So in this particular case, you have someone that has $2,720 a month in minimum fees that are due. Their retail credit card for $220, credit card for $353, car loan for $551 a month, another credit card for $303 a month, and a mortgage of $1,293. So every month without fail, this person has to pay $2,720 per month. What I would recommend you do is that you take that retail credit card, which is your smallest debt that you owe, you pay that off. Because you would have been paying $200 a month on that. Now that that's paid off, now you have $220 a month that's free and clear to pay on your credit card number 2. So now instead of paying $353 a month, now you're able to pay $573 a month. Once you pay that off, now you have $1,120 that you can apply versus the car loan. So instead of paying your car loan of $551 a month, now because you no longer have to pay that retail credit card and that credit card number 2, now you're able to double up on your car note. For those of you who understand how annuitized payment works, a car note or mortgage, any of those, based on the note that you, if you pay one full extra payment per year, you actually cut the amount of time for paying that in half because you're paying the interest now instead of paying the interest later. So for instance, if you had a 30-year mortgage and your mortgage payment was $1,000 a month, that means you're going to pay $12,000 a year for your mortgage. Chunk another $1,000 in there. So you're going to pay $13,000 in your first year of a 30-year mortgage and on a $1,000 mortgage per month. And now you've turned your 30-year mortgage to a 15-year mortgage. Do it again the second year. Now you've turned your 30-year mortgage into a 7.5-year mortgage. So for paying 2 extra payments on any annuitized payment, whether that's a car loan, whether that's a house note, for 2 straight years, now you've cut the amount of time it's going to take you to pay off that particular debt by 1/4. That works for anything that's a revolving credit. So then you do the same thing. You paid off your retail credit card 1, you paid off your credit card 2, you paid off your car loan. Now you got $1,124 from those debts that you were already paying. Do not spend that money. Apply that to credit card number 2. Now you're paying $1,427 a month on credit card number 1, where you used to pay $303. So you're paying almost 5 times. You're going to pay it off 5 times faster. And this is when the magic happens. Now you got that $1,427 that you can add to your already mortgage payment, and all the money that you used to pay on all those other bills, you can now apply on your mortgage. Remember what I just told you, that if you pay extra payment on already existing revolving credit, you cut the amount of time in half because you're paying an entire year's worth of interest up front. So the next slide is going to show you what I'm talking about here. Keep in mind, $2,720 a month. So if you do this without debt, what most people do, you pay your bills diligently on time with no plan. You're paying them all simultaneously. You didn't avoid any of this. You're going to pay $214,442 over the course of 23 years, paying that same $2,720 a month. But if you take that $27 a month and you use the plan that I just showed you, you will pay off all of that debt in 9 years. You will avoid $130,643 in interest, which means that's money that stays in your pocket. And you will only pay $3,799 in interest with the same amount of money that you have. So to kind of drive home that point, if you use the notion of debt stacking, which basically means that you do this plan and apply it to your finances, you will pay off your debt faster. You will have more money in your pocket. The trick is, do not be deceived into spending the money that is now free. Pay off all your debt, because you only get a chance to become really wealthy or to feel what that feels like when you have no debt. And I mean none. And it is possible.
Okay, Brian, that you to chew on, and you're having a few internet problems, and we know this virtual thing doesn't always work. And so I just kind of, I have some questions here, and one of the questions
Sure.
I think you've already answered, and that was simply, is there a legal way to repair my credit? But I think the same principle would work if we would do this. Is that correct?
Not necessarily. This is not debt, but there is a
Oh,
legal way to repair your credit. Once a year, due to the Fair Credit Reporting Act, every American is entitled to a free copy of their credit reports for each one of the major credit reporting agencies. That means you can get a free credit report with your official credit score from TransUnion, Experian, or Equifax. There are services that you can use that give you access to your credit report and your credit card scores for free. Credit Karma is one of them. If you sign up for a Credit Karma account, you can get a copy of your credit report once a year free. If you apply for credit and for some reason you're denied, you're able to get a free copy of your credit report and your credit score. So if you're out there and you're applying, say, for a car loan and you get denied, you can actually use that as a means to get a free copy of your credit report plus your credit scores from all the agencies on top of the one that you're legally able to get every single year. So what you want to do when you want to get your credit report is you want to do a couple of things. Number one, you want to make sure that all the personal information on your credit report is correct. That's important because of identity theft. As a personal testimony, when I was in grad school around the age of 24, I was applying to be an intelligence analyst with the CIA. I went through my lie detector test. I went through 3 or 4 rounds of interviews. In the 4th round of interview, they brought me into a room with 3 people and told me, hey, Mr. Gilbert, we have a problem. There's someone else in your credit report. So because we cannot verify your identity, we can't make you a candidate for this job. It took me 2 years to get that person off my credit report using my name, married with children, working as a janitor out of the University of Texas at Dallas, and had a home. And the only reason I found out is because it pulled up a credit report and said, hey, do you own my home in Dallas? I'd never been to Dallas, and I certainly hadn't owned the home. Another thing you can do is you want to record how much money you're making off of all sources of income. Debt to income ratio is 40% of your credit score. So if the credit agencies don't know how much you're making, they just make an assumption. And it's almost always a bad assumption. If you report your income, that can improve your credit score 50 to 60 points just by making that one change. Make sure that your mailing address is correct. Make sure that any prior residencies on your credit report are correct. That could be an indication that someone is using your identity. You are allowed to protest anything that you find on your credit report that's not a revolving credit that's older than 7 years. It's supposed to fall off your credit report. An old trick is that they sell your credit over and over again to different agencies. They have to have your original information, and normally they don't. So if you send a letter to them and say, hey, you need to prove that I owe this money, and they cannot produce documentation as the original creditor, which you're not going to be able to do, then by law within 45 days, they have to remove that from your credit report, and they cannot put it back on under penalty of law.
okay. This is not on credit, but somebody asked this, should my business be a sole proprietorship or a LLC?
That depends I would highly recommend anyone that can afford it in their state to incorporate as an LLC instead of being a sole proprietor. As a sole proprietor, you have unlimited legal liability for the assets of your business. So, in other words, if someone sues your business for some type of malpractice or malfeasance and you don't have bonding insurance, they can sue you not only for all the assets of your business, but all the assets that you have personally. And if you're married, they can also take your wife's assets. Under an LLC, considered a separate legal entity under US law, then they can only sue the company for its assets. They cannot touch your personal assets so long as you have not commingled your funds. In addition to that, it's more tax advantageous to be an LLC because you have more credits and deductions available to you than to be a sole proprietor.
Okay, okay. Thank you. That was California. Thank you, Arthur. We appreciate that. All righty. And you would want to continue to tell us. I wanted to ask that because it came in, and we want to make sure that we catch those questions from our listening audience as much as possible. Very
Absolutely.
good, very good. So what else I just want to stop and say thank everybody for tuning in tonight. You're tuning in, listening to Money Sense on MDO Ministries channel here. We are here to help you make sense out of your money. Our host tonight is Mr. Mr. Brian Gilbert, I'm sorry, Mr. Brian Gilbert, and he is a senior financial analyst, a young man who knows a lot about finances and how to make your money work for you. So if you're working for the money and the money's not working for you, this is the show for you. Amen. And all those you know. Brian, back to you.
Okay. I do want to encourage anyone who does have questions, take the opportunity to send either me an email at brian.gilbert1978@gmail.com or send something to MDL Ministries, MDL info, at mdlministries.org with your questions. And in the show, after I finish presenting the snippets of the topic for that show, I love answering questions. I know a lot about a lot, and a little about a lot when it comes to finance. And, I take it as a personal challenge to be able to help anyone with their particular issue when it comes to finance.
And
In
we
terms,
also want to say that while the show is on, or at any time, you can text us also. You can text us at 832 933-3054. That will come directly to us, and we will be able to answer your question. If we don't get you in on this show, of course, we will get you in on the next show, but we will try to answer your questions as expediently as possible. If you text during the show, we will answer your show. Okay, answer your question. So, Brian, I'm going to put it back in your hands so you can continue teaching us what we need to know about paying off debt.
sure. So, to reiterate, you want to use the concept of debt stacking to pay off your revolving debt. If you do that, you're going to pay off the interest faster because you're not paying interest anymore because the debt is gone. That money stays in your pocket. So you pay off your debts a lot faster. So let me give you the idea when I talk about with revolving debt. Revolving debt involves anything that includes an annuitized payment. An annuitized payment is something that you pay at the certain amount over a certain period of time. So a car note is an annuitized payment. You pay the same car note every single month, unless you pay off the principal, in which case your price can actually reduce. The same thing with a home mortgage. So to give you an example, the first home that I owned, when I moved into the home, it was a $320,000 house. I got a very good interest rate. My mortgage was $2,187 a month. What I did in my very first month of owning the home is I doubled up on my payment. And I kept doing that every month for the first 6 months that I owned the home. Well, I ended up getting a call one day from the mortgage lender, and they said, "Hey, Mr. Gilbert, we noticed that you're doubling up on your mortgage payments. What we would like to do is we would like to refinance your home because you've paid off significant portions of the back end interest." So the next month, my mortgage reduced from $2,187 to $1,419 a month because I'd already paid off the last 15 years of interest by doubling up on my payment now. So when annuitized payments where you pay the same amount every single time, that has a compounded interest rate on it, the longer you wait to pay more over the minimum amount that's due, the longer period of time you have to pay that particular debt. If you pay it off sooner, then you're actually paying part of the principal and part of the interest. So on a car note, for instance, if you have a $500 car note, depending on your interest rate, $400 of that might be your principal, $100 might be your interest. So if you turn around and you pay $600 on your car note, you're actually paying the interest for the next month. Well, if you keep doing that, what you will notice is that the amount of principal that's due on your car note will decrease. The amount of interest that's on your car note will also decrease. And over time, your car notes get smaller. You can use the same trick on a card. The only way it does not work is on fixed debt. But if anything that's a revolving debt, in other words, anything that is credit based, you are buying or financing something and it has compound interest, the same trick will work. If you put anything above and beyond the payment that's due, you will pay off the debt faster.
Brian, somebody says if
Mhm.
I owe a $200, if I owe 200 on my minimum credit card or my minimum debt, and I can't pay it all off at one time, but yet I can pay something on it and then the minimum on the others. Would that be just as effective?
Yes, that is the concept of debt stack. So what you want to do, what most people make the mistake of doing, is they try and pay all of their money on all of their bills every single month. The compound interest is going to grow anyway. What you want to do is you want to get to the point where you're paying off one of those interest-bearing debts. So pay your minimums if you can on all your other debt. Identify the one with the lowest balance and pay that off. When you pay that off, now the money that you were paying on that debt is now freed up, free and clear for you to apply against the next largest debt. Pay that off. Now you have a whole slew of money from those two debts that you've now paid off, paid against the third largest debt while still paying the minimums on the other. There are some instances where you have debt where you can't pay a minimum, like a house note, it's due. A car note is due. But credit card payments, student loans, things of that nature, they do have a minimum payment. Pay minimum payments on those until you pay off all those other debts that don't have minimum payments. And then you have money free and clear to pay off all of your debt. Works like a charm.
All right, all right. Well, Brian, we only have a few minutes left. Is there something else you'd like to add to this tonight?
There is. There are a couple of components that you need to remember in terms of what it takes to acquire or to maintain wealth. And there's different things that go along with it. Debt is one of those things that can be really detrimental to any family, to any individual, because they tend to get drowned in that. But remember, there's really only three things that you need to develop any type of wealth anywhere. Number one is to have less debt. Number two is to make more money. And number three is to do both at the same time. And if you're able to master or know enough knowledge to do both at the same time, you'll be better off. But the first thing that comes up is, or the first priority needs to be, get rid of your debt. Most people in the United States make enough money to make, but they're in debt. And because they're in debt, they feel like they don't have enough money because their money's being eaten up by their debt. So to use me as a personal example, my base wage at my job is 93,600 a year. That gives me $7,800 a month that I bring home. All of my bills put together, including my rent for my 3-bedroom apartment, all of my student loan debt, all of my revolving debt. I'm able to pay all of that and all of my utilities for about 1,700 a month, which means that 6,500 a month thereabouts is free and clear for me after taxes, and that money is going to pay off my student loans. So my student loans will be paid off in the next 4 years. So in 4 years, I would have paid off $240,000 worth of debt because I have two master's degrees. I have a bachelor's degree, all at private universities. And now I'm free and clear. That means that every single penny that comes into my household by 2024 September 2024 to be exact, will be free and clear to me. I can do whatever I want at that point. I don't have any bills, none, no debt.
All righty. Well, Brian, we thank you for sharing with us tonight. And listening audience, I do pray that you will take advantage of this knowledge and that you will put it to use. It has been a great help to those who have listening, and we're very grateful. These are principles that we normally don't learn at home. These are principles that no one teaches us unless we end up going to school or we just happen to meet someone who can instruct us and share with us this type of information. We're living in a time we need to do what? Increase our streams of income, but we definitely need to lower our debt ratio. And I want to encourage you to apply these principles to your life so that you can spend more time with your family and more time in developing yourself to be what God called you to be. Brian, I want to thank you so much for sharing with us. It is always a pleasure to have you on the show. And I want to thank all of our listening audience for listening to the word that works. Let me tell you, you need wisdom to live in this life. And the Bible says, if any man lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, and he will give it to you liberally. God has a way of putting people in your track, in your path, that allows you to learn what you need to learn. But his principles are in his word as well. Solomon gave us some very good things. And one of the things he says, the fool and his money soon depart. I'm paraphrasing. However, he said that wealth is built with wisdom. If we would use wise principles and wise concepts, then we will get to where we're trying to go. The last thing you want to do is be on your deathbed trying to figure out who's going to take care of you because you don't have enough money in the right place to do what needs to be done for your health. And even if an accident was to happen, you get a stroke, God forbid, or if you have something happen where you are incapacitated and cannot work, you want to know that you are taken care of and your family will not have to be burdened because you have covered yourself and you're able to get the help that you need. I want to say God gives us wisdom without fail. If you would apply these principles, you would see your financial ratios change and you would see yourself living a better life with less stress and more value. You were never meant to be a workhorse for anybody. You were always meant to be the head and not the tail. That you were meant
Amen.
to be above and not beneath, especially God's children. I want to share God, which is this for us all. So thank you so very much for watching us. Before we close, I want to tell you that if you don't know Jesus and the pardoning of your sins, that he is able to save your soul tonight, please don't hesitate because we don't know what tomorrow brings. And then as we come to him, in the midst of coming to him, there are so many things that he will empower us to do. Again, I am your host, Dr. Marshall. I want to say thank you for watching The Word That Works and watch this episode of Money Sense because we want you to make sense out of your money. God bless you and have a sensational Saturday and Sunday. Great weekend. God loves you and we do too.